Okay, so as you saw in the invitation, today's course is titled Mantra Yoga, okay, the spiritual power of sound. And before I get into what mantra means and yoga means, I want to, just in a nutshell, right, what we're going to be talking about here today is how sound in general influences our psyche in one way or another. Okay, and that's the main point here. All of the different spiritual traditions have taught different ways on how to work with sound. Okay, through whether it is through mantras or through prayer or even silent meditation. Okay, because silent in itself is a high vibratory state of energy. Okay, and so all of the different traditions, when we study them, they have always told us that there is a way in which we can experience God, that which is beyond the human, and whatever, however you want to conceptualize God, spirit, the self, the higher self, the no self, right? Sound can be used as a way or as a means for us to connect with that higher nature that we have within ourselves, that higher intelligence that we have within ourselves, and that is part of the universe as well. Okay, so why the title Mantra Yoga? Because the word yoga comes from the Sanskrit word, the root, which is yug, which means to reunite or to rebind or relink. Okay, so it implies a sort of reunion with something. Okay, obviously from a spiritual point of view, as the origin of the word yoga implies, is that yoga is a system, it's a complete discipline that allows one to reunite oneself as a soul, as a human being, with its spiritual counterpart. Okay, and so then we can say that mantra yoga is that science of sounds, that science of using mantras that will allow us to reach a state of reunion with God. Okay, and so that's the main purpose of this class, is to help us begin to understand, at least from a scientific point of view and as well as from an esoteric point of view, what the purpose of mantras is. And I'm going to give you guys a few mantras that you can try on your own. And obviously we'll have a guided meditation at the end of the lecture, in which we will go over at least one mantra, so that we can begin to experience this, right? Okay, and so of course this is the spiritual power of sound. Okay, and I didn't want to just call it the power of sound, because again, this is a spiritual school, and some of the foundational concepts that we teach here is that once you begin to change yourself internally, you can begin to manifest changes externally, right? So then the external world becomes a reflection of the internal states, or the external world is a manifestation of internal aspects. Okay, and this is something that Immanuel Kant said. The external is a reflection of the internal. Okay, and so from a spiritual perspective, if we want to change our lives, the first thing that we have to do is not to just try to change our external life, but to begin to change our own perspective about life, and to begin to change the way that we think about life. And then once we begin to change ourselves, then we will see that the universe will begin to attract different circumstances, the universe will begin to attract, for example, different people into your life, right? Okay, so let's begin with a little bit of science first. Nikola Tesla, he was a scientist, and one of the things that he said about the universe, so before I get to the quote, actually, Nikola Tesla was a scientist, and he also was very familiar with Vedic scripture. Okay, I didn't notice until recently, but he was a student of Vivekananda. He used to study yoga under Vivekananda. He used to study the Vedic scriptures. Okay, and he was always a sort of interesting guy, because he was a brilliant mind, very intelligent, that revolutionized the scientific community as we know, and he was also a deep studier of the occult teachings. Okay, and he was deep into the Vedic traditions. Okay, and so one of the things that he says was, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Okay, and this is something that Albert Einstein later corroborated and proved scientifically with his famous formula, E equals mc squared. Okay, so what were both of these minds telling us? Albert Einstein was telling us that basically the things that we call matter in the universe are not solid. Okay, that everything that we see in creation in the universe is pure energy. It just varies in different states of vibration. Okay, I'll give you a perfect example. This shirt that I'm wearing looks pretty solid from where you are, right? But if you bring this very close to your eyes and you put it on, like, in front of the light, you begin to see that there are holes in between there, right? And you begin to see that this is not just a very solid sheet of material. It actually is composed of different smaller threads, okay? And so when you even look deeper into those threads, you will begin to find even smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller particles. And then what the scientific community has discovered now is that really they have been looking for the smallest particle of matter, and the deeper that they go into matter, they can't find anything solid. All they find at the bottom of it all is just pure energy and light, or photons, which used to be the smallest thing, and now, I don't know, where are they now? Quarks or something like that?
Yeah, they compose neutrons and protons.
And so, anyway, it's very interesting, right? Because what science has discovered is like, so where is matter? Where does all of this come from? Well, then Albert Einstein shed some light on that, and now we know that what we know as matter is nothing other than energy simply vibrating on a certain frequency that makes certain things appear solid and other things appear less solid, and so forth, right? And so the empty space, quote unquote, that is between you and me, we call empty space because we simply don't see things there, but there are millions of things right in between us, right? And that's another state of matter. It's just that it's not as solid as maybe my arm, right? And so anyway, those things are very interesting, and I'm going to connect this with mantra. So now let's get a little bit more into trying to connect this science with philosophy. Hello, Dina. Hi, welcome. Okay, give you a minute to settle and
Okay.
starting a point. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Well, now you finally made it.
Oh, couldn't find the house, but
okay.
Dad was even later than me, so
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I was just gonna begin to connect the sort of philosophy with physics, even though, as you'll see, Albert Einstein didn't call this philosophy. So he said everything is energy. Okay, everything in the universe is energy, and I just said that nothing is solid. Okay, what we call matter is just energy in a particular state of oscillation, and that's what the formula E equals mc squared means, basically. Okay, so he said everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Okay, so let's get over it. There's no such thing as matter, right? At least according to Albert Einstein. Okay, he says match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. Okay, now he's getting very, very interesting. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. Okay, so first of all, he's telling us that there are different types of realities, right? If you can sort of kind of read in between the lines. Okay, there's no such thing as matter. Everything is just energy. Okay, and if we go based on that logic, then we live in a world in which life is manifesting at a certain state of vibration. Okay, and we can deduce that there are other dimensions or other states of vibration of energy. Okay, And here now I can begin to bring in the ancient traditions that talk about a physical world, a spiritual world, heavens, even hells, right? So what all of the different spiritual traditions without the science that we have now are basically saying the same thing. That there are different types of realities, and those realities are all accessible to our own consciousness. Okay? And the key on how to access those realities is how we use our attention in our consciousness. Where do we focus our consciousness? Wherever we focus our consciousness, that's where we are. And so, if we have been led to believe our entire lives that matter or physical objects is all there is in life, then our awareness is focused on that, and that narrows your ability to actually perceive anything that's beyond that, right? It's like if you don't have a concept of something, then you never open yourself to the possibility of experiencing it, right? And so this is where mantra yoga comes in, because what are mantras? Mantras are according to Samuel Veor, the Gnostic philosopher. He says a mantra is mantras are phonetic combinations made with wisdom. Okay, so a mantra is a word or a sentence or a song or a prayer that was made with wisdom of something superior. Okay, so it was made with the purpose of helping you. It's sort of like a formula, like a bridge between this vibratory state with a higher vibratory state, which will allow you to experience another reality, as Albert Einstein said, right? And so if we want to experience a higher reality, the reality of our being, the reality of our spirit, then all we have to do is begin to increase the vibration of our consciousness, begin to increase the vibration of our mind, which will allow us to experience life manifesting or vibrating at higher states. Okay, so the word mantra comes from two words, man and triya. Man, which means think or mind. Okay, and the word triya, which means to protect or to free. So a mantra is it's a phonetic combination made with wisdom that can allow us to begin to experience freedom of the mind. Okay, and so here in the Gnostic tradition, we talk about the difference between the mind and the consciousness. Okay, or we can say the unconscious and the conscious mind, whatever terms you want to use. Right, there is an aspect of ourselves, an aspect of our mind that is sort of mechanical and unconscious, and then there is a conscious aspect of ourselves. Okay, and so when we activate that aspect of ourselves that some traditions call the consciousness or the soul, okay, then that grants us the ability to begin to perceive other things, higher things. Okay, and so that's a little bit of what mantras are. Continuing with this concept of vibration, here we have an explanation from the 7 Hermetic Principles, which is taken from the book The Kabbalion. It's just Hermeticism. Okay, and here these teachings are attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, which was, according to some historians, he was one person in history in Egyptian times, or a collection of teachings that come from the Hermetic, what's referred to as the Hermetic tradition. Okay, and all the way back in Egypt, they told us nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. At the most fundamental level, the universe and everything which comprises it is pure vibratory energy, manifesting itself in different ways. The universe has no solidity as such. Matter is merely energy in a state of vibration. Okay, very interesting, right? And so, of course, what we can deduce from this also is that this concept that comes down from all spiritual traditions, which basically describe the human being as a triad of body, soul, and spirit. Okay, so there are 3 aspects of ourselves. Master Samael Veor says, a spirit one is, a soul one has. We're not even souls, we are spirit. that chose to manifest ourselves here physically with a physical body, and we can say that the soul is that aspect of the being or that aspect of spirit that serves as a mediator between the physical reality and the spiritual reality. Okay, this is why it's given the word psyche, that comes from the Greek, which means soul. Okay, and so the soul or the psyche is that mediator that basically is here connected with both worlds. Okay, so when we activate that aspect of ourselves, which we call the soul or the consciousness, then we are in a very unique position, even beyond God's, because we have the ability to actually perceive the physical world, be part of the physical world, and at the same time perceive our higher reality. Okay, and this is why human beings were created here in the physical world. This is why God, or the being, sends its soul down into the physical world, but God always stays up above, right? Or at least this is the sort of story that we hear, right? We hear different stories of like Brahma, for instance. He's up there in heaven, and then the human beings are down here. You see that in all different traditions. Why? Because he unfolds himself, herself, because God is male, female, right? And she unfolds himself, herself into us. And in this way, she can experience life in a different manifestation than in the superior worlds or in the spiritual worlds. Here we begin to experience duality. Okay? And up there is a state of non-duality. Okay? And this is very important because as in the Gnostic tradition, we say that the only purpose of God, of different gods descending into creation, is for knowledge, to acquire knowledge. Okay, and I'll give you a very brief example. One of the teachings that were given to us is that we learn by contrast. Okay, everything that we learn by contrast. Okay, and so basically, before you know about something, you have to go and experience it, right? Think of when we were kids and we were in our house. Okay, we began to have an idea of what life outside of the house was, right? What it is to work and to earn your own living and so forth. But you didn't really learn to do that until you actually went out and did it, right? And so that's sort of why the purpose of creation. That is why God's created this universe. I'm getting a little bit sort of too deep into the matter because this is sort of the philosophy that comes that has been taught down from the different spiritual traditions. But the main concept here is that we are here experiencing these lower states of the vibration of energy to create a contrast between this and the superior worlds. This in our true original state. Okay? And then, once we experience that, then we can actually become conscious of what spirit is and what matter is. Okay? In the Spanish tradition, there is a saying that says, nobody knows what they have until they lose it. Okay? And so that's basically what happens. We had to lose our spiritual state in order to become conscious of it. And once we fully regain that state, now you will continue to live in that state in a very conscious state. Okay? Okay. So this is just another example here from the Christian tradition, in which is which relates to what I'm saying and what I said in the beginning, that the external world is an externalization of the internal world, okay? And so in the Bible, we hear John saying, in the beginning was the Word, okay? And I'm going to connect this now with mantras, okay? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. Okay. First of all, what he's saying there is that in the beginning, okay, we can call the Big Bang, okay, which is in itself very interesting because if you're familiar with Isaac Newton, who's considered the science of materialistic, the father of materialistic science, was actually a deep esotericist, and he was trying, according to his diaries, he was trying to explain the Bible from a scientific perspective. He was saying that the Bible was actually a scientific explanation of how the world was created. Okay, at least Genesis. And so this is obviously not from Genesis, but this is from the first book of John. So what John is saying is that in the beginning, there was the Word. So in the beginning, everything that there was Word, which is what? Sound, right? Vibration. And then because of that vibration, okay, things began to manifest, or God began to create things through sound. Okay, and this is a very powerful teaching right here. It has many levels. It has metaphysical implications. Okay, and at the end here well, not at the end, but later on in that same chapter, he says, "And the Word was made flesh." Okay, so basically, in the beginning, if we actually break this down a little more, in the beginning was the Word. So there was a state, a moment in time and space that all there was just Word, was sound. Okay, and this relates also to the Vedic traditions, to the Hindustani traditions that say that Brahma created the world through sound. Okay, and so this word, or this vibratory state of energy that came from the beginning, which is another even deeper meaning, was that beyond the word there is a state that is beyond vibration. It encompasses vibration and no vibration, being and non-being. Okay, and that is a non-dual state of life and of the universe. Okay, but anyway, this concept of the word is very important because, as you can see, the word is sort of the mediator again between the beginning, which is beyond anything that we can conceive of with the mind, that which is beyond time, that which is beyond space. As the Buddha says or describes that in the Heart Sutra, where shape and form are the same. Emptiness is form, form becomes emptiness, right? That in itself is a mantra. And so through the word, we can begin to crystallize or manifest that which is beyond the spirit, or begin to manifest spirit into creation, as it says here on John 14. So it says, in the beginning was the Word, and eventually that Word was made flesh. Flesh is related to matter, right, or physical body. And so he's giving us a hint here that there are different states to ourselves. One is the state of flesh, but flesh, this physical body that we have, came from a higher state of vibration, which they refer to as the Word, okay? And technically, this is not a very good translation because John wrote in Greek, or he knew Greek, and what he said was, in the beginning was the Logos, okay, which is a Greek word which means the army of the word, or basically a bunch of different sounds is what he means. Okay, and if we study the Eastern traditions in Buddhism, for instance, they say that Om is the primordial sound, right? In the Hindustani tradition, they refer to as Om as being this primordial sound from which all of the different sounds that we know came about. Okay, so in Om, whenever we sing the mantra Om or Aum, we are basically pronouncing all of the sounds that there are into one word. And this is why Om is sort of the highest mantra in the Eastern tradition. Okay? So the power of the word, okay, or the power of mantras. We say that, as I've been sort of trying to point at. Hey Deborah, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Welcome.
I can move there.
Yeah, you can move over here, get closer to me. So, the word or sound has different effects, right? Spiritual, psychic, and physical effects. Okay, given that everything is vibration, then if our body is vibration, then we can influence the state of our body through sound. And the same goes for our psyche, our soul, and the same for our spirit. Okay? Or you can look at it in another way, which is that, like I said before, the physical is a manifestation of the spirit. Okay? And depending on what's in your psyche, then that will define your physical state of being. Right? Because spirit is the highest vibration of energy. It is related with love, with joy, bliss, okay, samadhi, ecstasy, oneness, okay? And so why can't we actually be in that state here physically? And the key is because since there is something sort of in between that is distorting this energy to manifest it, that's not allowing this energy to manifest itself purely in the physical world, okay? And so then this is where we talk about the power of the word. Because word is another, or we can use that same word for concepts, for ideas, for perspectives, okay? And so in the esoteric tradition, the spiritual traditions, okay, in the Gnostic tradition, we say that we are spirits, we have a physical body, we know this, we can see it. It's not as easy for us to see our psyche or to feel ourselves as psyche, as souls, but we do know that physically we're not expressing ourselves to our, in accordance to our highest potential, okay? And that is because of what's happening here in the psyche, okay? And so what's happening in the psyche? Basically, what the spiritual traditions are telling us is that the psyche at some point in time, when the process of going from spirit to matter, something happened within the psyche that fragmented the psyche. Okay, it split the psyche into many different parts, and so this is why this energy does not manifest itself clearly and purely through us in the physical world. Right? What is that fragmentation? Those fragmentations are referred to in the Gnostic tradition as the ego. Okay? The ego is, we can say, an entity or a bottle that takes the energy of spirit and dilutes it or distorts it. And so instead of expressing ourselves with love, with compassion, with altruism, okay, which comes from spirit, we begin to express ourselves with anger, with hate, with fear, right? And so what do we do? Well, then the secret is in what we call the psychological work, or the work with the psyche, which is to allow us to begin to liberate and reintegrate all of those different parts of the psyche into one, right? And we can do this through sound. We can do this through mantras. We can do this through prayer, okay? And so this is why when you do certain mantras, when you listen to, not just mantras, and remember, I'm using the word mantra or the power of the word really to say sound in general, okay? We can say that there are sounds that are coming from the spiritual world and sounds that are coming from the physical degenerated aspect of our psyche, okay? There's music, for instance, that was inspired by the spiritual aspect of some composers. And there is music that comes from the shadow aspect of a person, okay? Which create different vibratory states within you. There's music that when you hear it, you simply begin to feel more joy. You begin to feel more bliss, more oneness, more calm. And there's other music that makes you feel angry, right? That makes you feel sad and so forth, right? And so again, this is why the word or sound is so important, because through sound we can begin to elevate the vibration of our consciousness and begin to liberate all of those parts of our psyche that are trapped within ego. Okay, and so an ego is like I say, like a bottle or energy that begins to surround the consciousness and conditions the consciousness. Okay, so that the consciousness cannot act freely in accordance to its own nature. Okay, so the ego is the same essence, but acting in this harmony with its own nature. So instead of loving, compassionate, we feel angry and we feel hate. Okay? Instead of feeling courage, we feel fear. Right? And so we can use mantras to allow us to begin to liberate our essence, our true spiritual selves from these psychic aggregates. Okay? And that's why this is this is part of the course. Okay, there are different mantras here. I'm missing one here. Sorry, let me try to find it. You're all familiar with the concept of the chakras, right? And so here we go. I want to do a practice. I want to invite you guys to do a practice, okay, that helps in activating our chakras, okay? And the chakras, in short, are senses. In the same way that we have physical senses, we have internal senses. The soul, the psyche, has senses, okay? And these senses are sort of the bridge between our physical reality and the spiritual reality, okay? When these chakras are spinning in a certain way or working in a certain way, they call the consciousness up to the spirit, or on the contrary, project the consciousness out into the physical world. Okay? And so we can use mantras to allow us to activate in a positive way these chakras, and creating a bridge between us as physical beings and the spirit. Okay? And there are very, very simple sounds that can help us activate each one of these chakras, and they all relate to the different vowels of the alphabet. Okay? If we start from the top, the letter E in Latin, E, or the letter I in English, which can be pronounced E, okay? This letter activates the first two chakras, the Sahasrara or crown and Ajna or third eye chakra. The Vishuddha chakra in the throat can be activated with the letter E, which is pronounced E, okay? The Anahata in the heart, the letter O, okay? The Manipura or solar plexus, U, M for the Swadhisthana or sacral chakra, and the letter S, which is hardly visible here, for the Muladhara chakra or root chakra. Okay, so those are 7 or 6 vowels rather that we can use to activate and balance all of our chakras. S, M, U, O, E, I. Okay. And so you'll notice that the word O is here in the heart, in the Anahata. And since I said before that the word Om is the synthesis of all sounds, that is why I feel like the most important chakra to activate is the chakra in the heart. Because once you activate this chakra, this one aligns the other 3 together, right? So right now you can see that this is sort of our division, right? Our spirit is up here and our physical reality is up here, and it becomes one with the heart. It becomes one with consciousness, with the psyche, okay, or through the mediation of the psyche, okay? Okay, and then also there are different, like I said, different music that helps us in this process. I'm actually going to play a song which is from this artist Krishna Das. I don't know if you guys know him. He plays curtain music, and the purpose of I really want to play this song just to begin to give us an experience, okay, of listening to this music and begin to experience different states just through music alone, okay? And then when the song is over, okay, we're going to chant these mantras, and then we will enter into silence for a few moments, okay? And again, the whole purpose of meditation, the whole purpose of mantras is to help us relink ourselves with our spirit, right? This is why, again, in the beginning, since some of you missed it, the title of the course is Mantra Yoga, right? Yoga, which means to reunite, to relink the human with the divine, right? And so we're doing this reunion through mantras, okay? And lastly, silence is actually considered a state of vibration, okay? And this is why in the Buddhist tradition, they practice silent meditation, okay? They do chant some mantras, they do chant the Om, but you'll see a big difference from the Buddhist tradition than from the Indian tradition. Even though the Buddhism came from the from the Hindu religions, the Buddhists realized that ultimately the highest state of vibration of all sounds becomes silence, becomes stillness, right? And in that stillness, there is life. And in that stillness, there is everything. Oneness is there, right? So that's why ultimately in Buddhism they refer to experiencing the truth or experiencing reality, or what they refer to as the Tao or the illuminating void, as being empty. It is a state of emptiness in which we become full of life. Okay? And so, again, it's a matter of experiencing. You know, words can just sort of point us in the direction, but it's ultimately an experience that each one of us as souls need to encounter on a personal level, right? And this is, of course, the purpose of different rites of initiations that are given in certain cultures, right? This is the reason of being of certain of using certain sacred medicines to allow us to experience that higher state of being, to now contrast our true spiritual and divine nature with who we are in the moment, right? And so once you have a taste, once you have a sample of that, now you can work towards that, right? And that's the whole purpose of yoga or religion, to allow us to relink ourselves, to reunite ourselves with our spirit, and then to fully integrate with our spirit, okay? In Buddhism, they talk about two different states. One is the experience of samadhi, okay, or the experience of the Tao, which everyone can have, okay? And then it's just the beginning to experience your spiritual nature. And that's the first step in the, they call that the first step in the spiritual path, okay? From there, the end of that is to actually now realize samadhi within you, right? So you're no longer just experiencing samadhi or oneness or truth for a few seconds or a few moments. Now you actually begin to embody all of that within yourself. And this happens in degrees and degrees and degrees. Every time that we work on ourselves, every time that we eliminate from within ourselves inferior states of being, when we eliminate fear, when we eliminate anger, right, and so forth, all of those things that are not samadhi, that disconnect us from samadhi, then when you eliminate all of that, you have a permanent connection with that transcendental state, right? And so we're not getting in this section into the whole concept of the psychological work, but that is part of the program, and the whole purpose of meditation is to help us actually do this work, to do this psychological work, to learn how to activate our consciousness, to be able to eliminate the ego, to eliminate those things that serve as an obstacle between us and life, right, and love and being. Okay, so then we'll do a little meditation practice, and then we'll move on to question, comments. Okay, all right, wonderful. So let me turn this off. If you've been looking for a really comfortable meditation chair, though,
Awesome.
it was my Christmas gift from my brother, and I'm loving that.